What's going on, everyone? So we gapped down 2 days in a row and the market has taken a turn for the worse. All right, so in today's video we're going to go over the SPY, the QQQ, the IWM, and Bitcoin. So without further ado, let's get started with the video. So number one, we bought the dip on the NASDAQ. I bought at the money calls expiring at the end of January for the NASDAQ. And the reason why I bought that is because we can see that it is the first day that we traded outside of the lower level of the B band, and we came back and retested this trend line that was essentially a level of support multiple times throughout the past year. So we came back and retested this level. I thought, all right, it's a good dip buying opportunity. But I do believe that the market will continue falling lower. And the reason for that is because on the three main indices, the NASDAQ, the SPY, or the IWM, it is extremely unlikely that there is only going to ever be one day that it falls outside of the lower level of the B band. So if you go back to any time that the NASDAQ or the SPY or the IWM was outside the lower or the upper level, it's very, very unlikely that it only falls out once. So as you can see, the most recent time was in the beginning of December, where we had one day outside, and then we had 2 or 3 more consecutive lower days where we fell outside of the lower level of the B band, right? So that is why I think that, yes, dipping our feet into the long side for 1 month out contracts basically was a good buy here, but I believe that the NASDAQ will fall lower and will potentially even break 375.80 and fall below here, right? So I believe that the trend line here will be broken, and 377 will be broken, and then potentially even 376. So that would send the RSI much closer to oversold, and then that would also bring the MACD much more oversold as well. But regardless, just in case for some reason we bounce out of this, we bought into the calls. But I bought in very lightly because I do believe that the NASDAQ will fall lower. What's going to end up, basically there's a few different scenarios that might end up happening. The first scenario would be if we gap up, basically if we are bullish into tomorrow, right? So we'd be bullish into tomorrow. President Biden is giving a speech tomorrow as well. So that might cause some bullishness, and then potentially a sell-off into the end of the week. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we might be selling off just a bit. That would create new lows, right? What that would do is it would set up a perfect opportunity for the Santa Claus rally. The Santa Claus rally is the last 5 days of the trading year and the first 2 trading days of January. So that would set it up perfectly, because that would basically coincide with us falling outside of the lower level of the B band on the NASDAQ. We would have new highs, early into the middle of this week, and then we would end up falling lower. That's my take on it. I think that we do fall lower. I still think that we fall lower. I still think that we fall below 376 on the NASDAQ. And I bought a little bit. I'm going to buy much more if we fall down below that level. And all of these things, they coincide well with the SPY as well. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the SPY. You'll get a better understanding of what I'm saying. So for the SPY, right? Basically, obviously we fell down below 454, blah, 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 right? But the reason why I believe that there's still more room to the downside on the NASDAQ is because the SPY still has room to go for it to come back and retest this trend line. So if the NASDAQ were to fall below 376, right, that would essentially bring the SPY perfectly to come back and retest this trend line, and then potentially come back and retest 449. So that would be a much better buying opportunity for the indices overall, instead of right now when there's no clear justification for either way, right? You don't want to go short the indices right now. You also don't want to heavily long the indices right now either, unless there's a clear retest of support, and there hasn't been a real one on the SPY as of yet. Whereas on the NASDAQ, yes, we did have a bit of a retest of this trend line, but there's still more room to go on the SPY downward. That's why I think that the NASDAQ is also going to fall. So essentially, hey, we bought this dip. Now, if you didn't buy the dip, what is there left to see, right? Number one, we need to see how the NASDAQ responds being overextended to the downside on the Bollinger Band, right? Number two, we need to see on the SPY if we can break above and close above 455. Then obviously the next level of resistance is going to be this 38.2% fib level at 458.32. All right. Another really good sign is that the MACD is really, really oversold now. It's very, very overextended to the downside. This is one of the reasons why I bought the dip, is because when we are this just dramatically falling down on the MACD like this, it's very highly likely that the next day will be a bit more green. So yeah, so there's that. So now that you guys see that there's more room to go to the downside for the SPY and the NASDAQ potentially, now I want to show you guys the IWM. Now, the IWM is a interesting case because it's been making new lows completely. So even over here back in December, right, the SPY didn't break these lows yet. The IWM already did, and it made new lows even today. So there was a downtrend line back in the middle of November that when that broke, it basically showed me that it was like a good shorting opportunity. What's crazy is that the same downtrend line is now acting as resistance. We're falling so much on the IWM that it's acting as resistance. So we couldn't even close above this level today. So that's why I think that we do have more room to go to the downside on the IWM as well. And then we would come back and retest this 206, 207 level, potentially even this trend line at 204.81. So the IWM has more room to go to the downside. The SPY has more room to go to the downside. And the NASDAQ is the first day outside of the lower level of the B band. So all of the indices are showing lots of weakness. And the first day of this extreme weakness in the NASDAQ is highly unlikely that we won't see a continuation to the downside in the next few days. So that's why I bought a bit of the dip in case, you know, Santa comes early this year. But, you know, most likely I do think that we are going to fall even lower. And at that point, I'm going to buy the dip even more. Anyway, the IWM obviously needs to close above 213.15. That's the next that's the most important resistance currently. If we can close above that level now, right, and hold that level of support, then we can go back and retest 218.11. But right now, there's a lot of different news going out in regards to the new variant, in regards to various different geopolitical things. So that's why the market is going a bit nuts right now. So we just need to watch these levels. I do think that the market continues falling, but we just have to take it one day at a time. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the crypto market. All right, so Bitcoin, basically this is a textbook. Basically we should pop out of this, right? Either way, the faster we move in either direction, that is going to be the best case for Bitcoin to make a parabolic move into the first quarter of the year. The longer we wait, then the more likely it will be that Bitcoin is going to make a parabolic move into the end of summer or the end of 2022. So let me explain to you guys why. So Bitcoin right now, right? You can see that the indicators are extremely all out of whack. We're in a downtrend, but the indicators are overbought. The MACD is overbought. The RSI is moving upward. So algorithmically, this isn't a favorable point to buy, right? So over here, when the RSI was extremely, you know, it was much higher than where the price, you know, justified that it would be. And the MACD, you can see that the MACD line was just so extended to the upside. Made no sense, right? It made no sense that we were that overbought, and we became extremely overbought on the MACD right here. You can see like right here, right here. We were overbought on the MACD and failed that resistance. When that happened, it was basically a clear-cut sign that, you know, we failed here and we needed a reset in the indicators. So the reset happened once we became extremely oversold and the RSI fell. All right, but the RSI still could not really become oversold as much as needed, right? So that is exactly why right now we're consolidating in this weird pattern right now. So what essentially I think is going to happen, it looks very similar to various different Forex charts as well, ranging back to, you know, years and years. Whenever, like usually whenever this happens, there is a rally. And most likely, I think that rally is going to be either to 51.5 or potentially come back and retest this trend line. And what that would do is it would cause the MACD to become extremely overbought again. And the RSI obviously would go higher. But then as we fall, right, the MACD can potentially do this, essentially become oversold much quicker. And what that would do is once the MACD becomes oversold much quicker, but the price of Bitcoin is up here, that would be a bit more bullish. But I mean, there's so many different scenarios. It's wild. So the other thing is we could bounce out of this. I mean, most likely what's going to end up happening is we're going to bounce out of this. But I do think regardless of what happens, we are going to come back and retest this level. We're going to come back and retest both of these levels. Actually, like 70% at least, we're going to come back and retest 45,000. So 44,900. So I think that Bitcoin still has to come back and retest that level. It can be bullish in the next few days, but then from then we can still, you know, fall much heavier. And then, you know, come back, retest 40 to 41,000, get everyone extremely, you know, out of the understanding that there's going to be a bull run into the beginning of the year. And then, you know, they consolidate it and then, you know, pump it up even higher. So, yeah, I mean, Bitcoin does it looks out of whack in terms of the technicals, but this pattern after this huge drop shows that there could be a pop and then a drop even lower. So yeah, there's my analysis on Bitcoin. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff, put on post notifications, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, all that other stuff. Thank you.